Hi, it's Susan from Worldpeacefull. In the previous video, I did quite a narrative along the lines of violent video exposure to children, and it was a warning in that video because of the mental health issues and the neural network wiring of the brain. See, when you are constantly exposed in a experiential way to violence, and it's framed within a fun narrative, it programs that person to associate. They see the image, they have feelings of fun. This is mind control, and society has to be very aware of it. I'm bringing this up as an introduction because the talk I'm going to give is on mental health. It will be a short one because I actually have to run out the door. And it's in response to the Royal Commission here in Melbourne, Australia, handing down its scathing findings and stating that mental health is a crisis. I would absolutely agree with that, given the plugging in of everybody into social media, their phones, constantly scanning for images on their phones. This is a serious, serious matter. Now, for those who have invested in this, you have to hear this because this is where the commercial bumps up against the social impact. And people can say, oh, well, let's just make the money and worry about it later. That's an irresponsible approach to a product or service delivery. This is why we want ethics and mission statements that are lived within organisations and companies and multinationals. It's not to give lip service in respect of your brand image. I was a market analyst. I'm very clear about the marketing that goes into preparing a product or service for market and how it's designed intimately to appeal to the emotions of that target market. But when it creates a social harm, particularly an invisible social harm, if it's pitched at in such a way that you can't say that this is wrong. When we're talking about mental health, because I want to go there because I see such a problem with this. And, I'm 54, and let's just say going right back to when I was a child, we went out and played. The media that we were exposed to was actually very light. We had Disneyland, the Brady Bunch. We had really innocent images being projected at us. Now, over the course of my life, and particularly with the Americanization of the media, because there's no doubt in my mind the US film industry has a lot to answer for here. The images are getting to the point of no story or violence. That is a mental health issue in those who have even created it. And if they can't see that this is not a fun thing to be, it might be fun in the way that they see it. They might love all the they might love to see everything blowing up. They love the guns. They love the noise. They love the power. And this is a mental health issue that's under the surface. Now, when I say this to industry, I really am not saying this in a scathing way of those engaged in it. I'm not. Because we are what we are, we get exposed to what we're exposed to. We've had plenty of people come along our way who have encouraged us, and we think it's all fine. No one's complaining. It's not, it's not socially unacceptable. There's money to be made in it. Why not? They'd be thinking. Now, I'm going to go still for a moment because I want to get more clarity around the mental health and how to deliver this message without, I don't want to offend anyone, but I also want them to take note because our lives are all linked karmically, and what you do to another returns to the self. So it will come back to you, is what I'm trying to say to you. And that's not a punishment thing. It's just cause and effect. It's life. Life does this. Everything's circular. You may not understand that, or this may not be your philosophy, but I'm just giving you this insight for your highest good. So I'll go quiet for a moment and just try and sit with the mental health. I'm feeling a lot of sadness. It's coming from great sadness, escape. Not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. I got to be bigger, brighter, better than everyone else. This is what drives, and this is how you get seduced into business type channels. Make it big, get the money, and everyone's going to love you, okay? I'm just going to go silent again because there's more to this. Break up with the family immediately. This is because of the commercial pressure. So this is a message to the business industry, without a doubt. Too much pressure on the public to work, work, work. Parents are away from their children. There's no family time. They all are on separate devices. They have them in their rooms. They are addicted to their devices, and therefore they become non-interactive within family situations. They might be sitting on a phone. And because there's been no real guidance around these things should not be they should not be on these devices when there's people around them, because we tune the people out and we tune into a technology. This has really big implications for mental health, for socialization, for social connectedness, for building empathy, for getting in touch with one's emotional array. Now, these emotions have often been discounted as, oh, it's a female thing, don't cry, it's not male, it's like tough up, what do they say, man up, all this ridiculous narrative. This is total, bunkum. It's total bunkum. It's not about manning up, it's about actually getting engaged with, and there will be critique around what I'll say next, the feminine side. And the reason I say that is because the masculine and the feminine are in every single person, but one side dominates. There will be those, of course, who are in balance, who have a very strong masculine and feminine together, and they tend to operate in a more balanced way. So they're not, from the feminine perspective, there's a real sensitivity around the feminine. The feminine reads the emotional landscape very fast. The feminine feels empathy very quickly if someone's hurting. This is that emotional intelligence that the feminine has a real skill in. That's why the mother image with the heightened feminine are usually excellent mothers, because they can sense their child's need immediately. This is a human need they're sensing. These are the real needs and wants of humanity, not the marketed and packaged and delivered products and services that have been articulated as needs and wants. They're not. This is part of the psychology inherent within marketing. It's to exploit, if you like, insecurities within people and say this is going to fill the gap. But the public don't know that because they're not trained in marketing. But that's what's done. So the person looks popular, they're very happy. You'll see a lot of happy images. You see it everywhere. I laugh because I'm trained in it, so I know. And, oh, I'm going back to school. It's so much fun. I've got friends. And then they go to school and it's like, or uni or whatever, and they are stressed to the max. They got too much work. Some of them get depressed, but that won't be shown in the marketing because they want to sell the product. They just need you to say yes sign the dotted line or purchase online. And that's all they want. They don't care. After the product or service is sold, that's it. Their responsibility, their duty of care ends. And this is where our problem is. Now, in the emotional intelligence, going back to the feminine, there's a real holistic sense about it. So women those with heightened feminines, not every woman has a heightened feminine. Some are very masculine, and it's pretty evident. You can see the masculine females. They tend to be very male, even look a little bit male, and they can be very practical. There's a lot of, very logical. You can see some really great strengths too around that. But the feminine tends to be holistic. It's the family. And this is what's breaking down in our world, hence the mental health. The feminine doesn't have time. Now, that feminine can be in a masculine, can be in a male. So a male who is a very good caretaker, very good nurturer, very good parent, very tuned into his children, is also someone with a heightened feminine. So there's no hard and fast. Typically, the females are wired for this because of evolution. The neural networks are affected by our lived experience, and over generations, biologically, these genes are passed on. This is how nature adapts to its environment, and anything that adapts well will be favoured, and those genetics will be the dominant active genes in the next generation. So don't underestimate what gets passed on, but the lived experience is actually what shape changes the genes as well. It's not just biologically fixed, as some people might think. We're very adaptable. That's why we're a resilient species. So it's not to psychologically believe narratives that the feminine is weak and the masculine is strong. This is an absolute lie. You know, the mother, if you look at where do you run to when you're upset, you go to your mother. Typically you do. The fathers don't know how to typically, I'm not saying all of them, don't know how to respond to that emotional side, and they typically will change the subject, distract you. They will, particularly here in Australia, the men very much orientated this way. And they'll ignore that emotional issue which is in need of response. Because if you do not respond to it, it doesn't disappear. Now, some might say it turns into nagging or whatever. It may well do, a repeated narrative because I'm not being heard. This is where the mental health issues arise, is when people are not heard. And it can be the masculine without doubt as well. In fact, I would say there's a huge need within men to be heard because they're so suppressed. I often watch them sitting with each other, no words spoken. And it's like a foreign world to me as a female. I can't imagine sitting with a friend or a colleague and saying nothing. And what they were doing was, they were on their phones. They weren't even present with each other. Now, someone can say, oh, well, that's men being men. No, it's not. It's a problem. I've been all over the world, and in some cultures, there are very, very active communication skills in men. For example, Italy. The men talk, they use their hands, but they're very verbal, and they're very masculine. In Central and South America, I found the same thing. The men were in the communities, they all talk, they knew community. So this is not a male thing that they're silent with each other. It's a socialization that they have learned from their fathers, from other men, and they think that's a man. It's not. Men all over the world, you go to Russia, they all chat. I mean, admittedly, they have a few vodkas probably. There's a bit of drinking over there. Just trying to think of another culture. The indigenous cultures, they have very relaxed ways of communicating with one another. Third world countries that I've been to, and also those I've known, very excellent social skills. They play music and then they chat, they drink. It's often very light banter. There's no negative criticism. They probably would have heated discussions, but from my experience of what I've observed, I found people, particularly in group type cultures, they tend to work with the group and they don't get really angry on their high horses and march out like I'd see in my culture. They have respect. They're careful what they say because they're in a community. But they're all very warm with each other because they know each other so well. I mean, you've got families that have 3 generations under the one roof, grandparents, aunts and uncles, children. They all know each other like family. They know each other well. And this is where mental health occurs, is when we connect. I often smile at people and I know it heals them when I smile. I've been a clown. I clowned all over the world. I smiled into the face of thousands of people. And I cannot tell you the beauty and the health effect of that. Dr. Patch Adams, who I went to Russia with, he talked about loneliness as one of the biggest diseases in our world, dis-ease. These social isolation behaviours where men cannot communicate where they get used to suppressing their feeling, because if they reveal it, it looks like it's weak, or they feel vulnerable to other men who will be critical of them. They're very sensitive, so they suppress it. This is what isolates them. This is the homelessness that they feel. I'm working on homelessness in the true sense of what it really means. Home is where the heart is. If there's nobody home, there's no heart. You're not going to get reinforcement. You're not going to have someone say, "How was your day?" and be present. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of presence, which is why I talked about the violent video games in the first instance. That is one of the most powerful ways to disconnect. Now, I want to bring in the idea of objectivization, because this is all associated with this massive disconnect emotionally from one another. When you're on devices, when you're on computers, when you're watching videos, we are watching an object as we are looking at the film of this image flashing at us as the sequences move very rapidly. They're all objects. It's no mistake that the internet is referred to as the object of things. This word object is getting more and more utilized, and it's not a good sign. It's a separated, compartmentalized, singular, linear form of consciousness that sees an object, and there is no emotion with that. Other than if that object is killing things, we might get excitement around the winning element, because it's a programmed game. You know, these things are designed to addict. They're repetitive behaviours, and the addiction is in the winning, because that gives us a sense of power, but we don't know. There's an adrenaline rush with it, you see. So chemically, we are stimulated. That then forms the attachment to the activity, which means you're going to want it more and more. This increases demand. This is how we get products sold repeatedly, because that's the intent behind these products being made available. It's about making money. It's not about your happiness at all. Once a product's sold, it's out the door. Remember that. This is commercial transaction. This is not I love you and I care about what happens to you after the game is over. As long as you keep playing the game, we don't care. And if we can monitor you through headphones, we'll do that, because we'll get you talking to other people. Then we've got an app on the computer. The apps, by the way, are corporations. Do not see them just as little icons. They're not. They're corporations, and they have a vested interest in gathering the data so they can profile and sell. This is all about selling. So the mental health issues are arising because of humanity's disconnect from one another, the breakdown of the family, the impersonalization of work, which is not a community, it's a workplace. We don't do these things here. I did research into a workplace for a council many years ago. It was to do with women in local government, in actual fact. And I was interviewing groups of women, and I had one group of men as a sort of a group to the side for a comparative analysis. And things like the women feeling they couldn't even go to the toilet to cry when they had their period, which no one talks about, which we should. It's human, it's natural. You wouldn't be here if it didn't happen. But these things, we suppress all these important, vital conversations because, it's inappropriate. Well, no, it's not. It's life. It's about exploring. It's about, questing. So in this analysis that I did, the women were typically in the caring role, so we had stereotypical perceptions with these men in management. And it was a council, so there was a lot of men in management. I know that's changing in some of the councils. There's more women. We're getting more Lord Mayors now who are female. So the females are rising, thank goodness, because what that creates is balance. Providing the females are not trying to be men, they're being women, and that's being accepted as part of that diversity within a unified situation. If women just remain women and add a perspective, which is bringing the feminine in, you will get balance. It's not social ordering, even though the word social ordering is used, it's social harmony. That's what balance is actually about. This is what peace is about. It's about homeostasis, the balancing of the opposites, which has no control anything in it. It means coming into balance, know thyself, come into integration with the emotions, become conscious of yourself as a whole. This is where happiness comes from. When you finally get to a point of happiness, you've come to a point of peace because you have fully integrated who you are. You're not denying anything. You're not sitting there going, oh, no, the world's given me a raw deal. Instead, you're owning your emotions around what has happened. You're facing everything with courage. You're not plugging in so that you don't have to deal with the world because it's too complicated. The true courage in this world comes from facing the world. But the biggest courage is to face it without violence. It's to face the world intelligently, saying, okay, why is this happening? Mental health is a crisis. Homelessness is a crisis. Mental health is homelessness. They're one and the same. And you might say, well, how can that be? Homelessness is without a house. Mental health means you've got problems mentally. That's how some will see it. As I said, homelessness is where home is where the heart is. When there's no heart, there's heartlessness. There's, I don't care about you. I don't see you. When you're talking to me, oh, you're just raving on. I don't care. This is homelessness. You have no home with me. You're not safe with me. So you have to put on a pretense in order to interact with me. If you want to feel safe, you have to pretend you're someone else. And this is the falseness that people carry, the false mask. How many people live their whole lives with a false mask, pretending that they fit in? Deep down, they think they're lying. And I know because I've talked to quite a few who believe their life is a lie because they've had to fake it to make it. They couldn't be themselves because no one honoured them for who they are. You've got to look the part. You've got to have the car. You've got to have that nice house, the nice wife or husband. You've got to look like you've progressed up through the ranks. You've got to hold it together. You don't lose your cool. This is all a lie. The reality is you've struggled really hard. You're exhausted. You've got no sleep because you feel so pressured, but you've got to smile at the boss because they might sack you, but deep down you're really angry at the boss because you don't have enough time. Your family's problems are all cropping up. You haven't got time to deal with it. And there's a silent scream from our community beneath that. I can't cope with this. My child's gone off the rails. Why? Because they've not had the parent present. They're not heard. They're learning from television, which is mostly violent here in Australia. I'm so unimpressed with the type of programming that's coming in through digital. Contrasted with my childhood, this is absolutely indoctrinating violent dispositions. And then the police will say, oh, the world's getting more violent, we need to suppress everyone. That's not your solution. The suppression creates more violence because the more you hold it down, that emotion has to come up. Or they crack. Mental health. They lose it. They start talking to themselves. They start getting paranoid. No one likes me. I hate myself. I can't look myself in the mirror. No one likes me. I've got no friends because no one's got time to get to know anyone. That is your silent scream, your silent suffering under those smiling faces. I'm a clown. I go into the public. I'm very good at sensing energy. We demask. My clown character was a jester. I'm able to see into the people when I'm clowning because I come from a space of very much unconditional love. So I'm not holding all these stories, projecting them onto the people. Because I live in the moment as a clown, I actually can see them because there's no story. I'm not holding on to anything. I'm just going to go still for a minute on the clowning because it is a powerful experience. Immediately breaking free comes up. They get to break free for a few moments because we dance. I always think of Nepal, funnily enough. There's a scene I remember, it was like a Bollywood scene out of a movie. There's some Indian blokes, actually, they were visiting Nepal. Because India's to the south of Nepal. Nepal's a Buddhist country, really amazing country, where Buddha actually comes from. Lumbini is where Buddha's birthplace was. So I just remember dancing in this square, and it was a famous square. I think after the earthquake, the square collapsed, but I remember going there, and I was with a there was a couple of Rotarians, because I was doing Cultures of Peace in school, and they were doing a school program. They were actually training teachers. So I was dancing in the square with these Indian guys, and we were doing Bollywood. It was hilarious. I really loved that moment. And I can remember jumping on a bus with my feather duster, and it was packed, the bus. This is in Kathmandu. And I had my big love glasses on, and it was like squeezing into the bus. I ended up sitting on some woman's knee in the back of the bus. And I also got to hang out the window, because there was a window, and I had my duster, so I was dusting the people. Oh, you're very dirty. Oh, dust, 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 dust. And, waving, love you. And they were fascinated. You could see the people, because it was breaking them out of a routine that was just the boring norm. We all know the norm. I worked in hundreds of companies myself, so no, I haven't been a wayward hippie. I was a market analyst. And I've worked in lots of jobs. So I know that mundane routine that everyone gets up, gets on the bus, goes to work, they're trying to wake up, and they get stuck in, and then they lose themselves. Lunchtime comes, they nip out, and even that's starting to diminish. That's another reason for mental health too. They don't have enough rest. Then they go back to work, stuck in, then they might have to take it home, particularly in this culture, they have to take it home. So there's no real downtime. They work to the bone, and because of this economic mantra, I'm just moving from clowning now back into the problem. Because of the economic mantra, which is cut costs, the whole economic system is designed on profit maximising, cost minimisation, and of course workers, people, citizens are all in that cost of production. And as a result of that, they want to push the price down. This is why the wages have been held down, because they're trying to maximise profit. But if we came at it from gross national happiness, which actually comes from Bhutan to the north of Nepal, come at life in a completely different way, which is we're not here to maximise profit, we're here to maximise happiness. I saw Russell Brand actually in a movie just recently, and I've forgotten the name of it now, because it was on my friend's USB, and he was this really rich guy, and totally irresponsible, did whatever he wanted. He was a clown, definitely. He got attracted to wearing the big suit. I so related to him. And he was really intelligent, and, for him it was all about fun. And, of course, the character that he was playing was this irresponsible rich kid, had mother-son issues. The mother didn't know how to be a mother because she was top of the corporation, and they never really connected. And he ended up meeting this nice girl who was a tour guide, making up her own tours. She was a little bit of a scammer, a little bit, not much, but running for the police, doing illegal tours type of thing. The scam is not the right word. She was surviving, and doing it creatively would be a better way of reframing that. And he fell for her because they were both dreamers and romantics, and often the romantics are seen as, oh, look at you, you're not real, get with the program. I'm a poet myself. I would relate to that artistic genre. And he was saying, oh, money, why are you spending money on all these serious things? Why don't you just spend money to make people happy? And that struck a chord in me. And I went, yeah, pay it forward. Why not pay it forward? When you're standing in a queue, if you've got the money, why don't you pay for the person shopping behind you? Why not do a random act of kindness? Whoa, that's going to really challenge you. Go and do something lovely for someone. Homeless person, take them in. You got a spare room, take them in. Give them food. What's to fear? You're in danger of making a friend. Yes, some of them might have problems, go help them. There's all these negative images we're holding in our heads. World's dangerous. No, it's not. I travelled the world. I found it was not dangerous. I actually was helped all the way. I went to 20 countries on my own. I did it to face fear. That's why I did it. And I also said I was a world peace clown. I even remember where I was standing. I know exactly where I was when I said, you're a world peace clown. You need to travel the world. You can't call yourself that unless you've been there. So I did. I got a world ticket. And that job I told you about, the women in local government, was what helped me fund going over there. That money was not spent on me at all. It was spent on going around the world to teach peace. It was a humanitarian venture that it was inspiration. I had to go calling, call it a calling. This is, of course, what you miss out on when you get very bogged down with all the shoulds and the shouldn'ts of life. And I've got to do this, I've got to pay that mortgage. And these are all parts of a structure that keep us all on treadmills that we're actually not wanting, and that's your mental health. We feel trapped. And if you can't change things outside of you, something can snap within you. And mental health is not just about having a nervous breakdown. It's also about the way we see. We start to see, if you keep being indoctrinated because of commercial interests that wants to say that you need an alarm, the world is unsafe, you need cameras, you need to have a dash cam, that then sets up within you this belief that you can't trust anyone. Well, I've left my car open, nothing got stolen. You know, I talk to people all the time and I'm in danger of making a friend. If someone's a bit, tricky, I might give them the look. I've had that happen. Some guy was staring at me and I had to give him the look to stop that. I've learned. Because I'm not an object. I'm a human being. And if you want to get to know me, come and talk to me as a human being. Don't treat me as an object. And then if I try to resolve that with you, you need to come back to me and resolve that matter with respect and clarify your intent as to why you've done what you've done. If I'm being distressed by that, compassion moves towards me. If you're not feeling to move towards me and you're disconnecting, then that disconnect is what causes the emotional disruption in the other party. We are not objects, we're people. And it is not in our interests to create a highly disconnected, violently imbued media and repeated narratives that the world is unsafe. For example, those incidences that happened here in Melbourne, there was a few incidences. A guy was wielding a knife. Now, this never happens in Melbourne. There was definitely something wrong with the guy because he kept doing this type of action, and this is just totally not normal anyway. I don't know whether this was because what was the rationale behind it? Why was he doing this? And some police were trying to contain the situation, and he was lunging. That's mental health. Why would you be lunging at a policeman? What's the point of that? He's obviously in a great state of fear. It was just prior to the Victorian election where there was a lot of narrative around control. So I have questions around that incident myself as to who he was and why he was shot and what that ramification of that incident was. In other words, the fear it instilled in people going into the city. The other one was recently we've just had a hearing around the guy who was doing donuts in the middle of the city and he went up on the path and he killed quite a lot of people. This is absolutely horrendous in Melbourne, which is considered a place of social order. And it made people feel incredibly insecure going into the city, fearful that something like this could happen. Now, I remember when he was found by the police, when they got him, he was like unconscious, I believe. He had his eyes closed. There was something going on there. Now, if, for argument's sake, we're dealing with pathological, disconnected psychological states where they feel no empathy for the other, and that's what we're creating when we disconnect from, when we plug those things in and we become technology-oriented or a technocracy, which is what is being planned here, you're going to have more of that disconnect. because the focus is on a linear type of thinking. I had kindergarten teachers and primary school teachers who I've talked with about children who are being disconnected through technology, and they were saying that the children weren't able to problem solve very well, and they weren't tuned into other people. In a society, that's very problematic. It creates tunnel vision. The neural networks, when they're children, the neural networks wire in, hardwire in. So who do you blame? Do you blame the child, send them to jail and say, we want to reform you, when their neural networks are being repatterned? What do you do with that? Do you take a responsibility as a society and the IT industry around that? Do they sit down and go, you know what, we have to really think about what we're socially engineering here. We could be destroying our own civilization. Because if we can't harmonise together, if we can't relate, if we don't feel empathy for another person, if we're not sensitive, if a person's crying and we all just keep walking past, or if they're on the street homeless and we just don't even see them anymore, what does that say about us as human beings? What have we lost? We've lost our community. That is why mental health is on the increase. 1 in 5, probably more. I'd say it's 1 in 2. I say that because when I was a clown, I remember the mental health, the real health of loving everyone and the safety that I felt when I projected love into the world. And people go, oh, no, that's idealistic. No, it's not. It's not idealistic. It is truly social impact. I was totally safe clowning with strangers in the city because I was playing. There was no threat. And those who weren't dark, and you can see the dark ones, they don't want to look at you. You know, they go down, there's fears in them. So what you do is you step back, because love steps back. You allow them where they are. You're not here to make them happy. You're here to be happy and project it into the world. Now, I felt all pressure come off my shoulders. I was completely light. It's like in a form of an enlightenment. And I remember loving everyone. I just fell in love with everyone because that's who they are. I could see them. Now, you might say, oh, that's not true. It is. I've clowned thousands and thousands of times. I know what I see and I know what I feel. They drop the mask when they feel they're safe. They will enter into fun banter. They will play with you. They see their children happy because you're blowing bubbles or you're juggling. Children are laughing because children aren't frightened. Children have no fear. They're fearless. They can't wait to play. They go chase. In fact, they chase you and you go, oh, I'm running. And they come flying after you. And then you do a bit of around a pole. I loved it. I loved working with children. I always have. Kids are great. Kids are very close to the persona of the clown. That's who we're actually modelled on, as the children. And I remember sitting with a friend of mine, beautiful clown, another wonderful old man. He was 70 years old, this clown. I think of him a lot. He's a great guy. His name was Harry Potter, John Potter. He was the one that inspired me to clown. And he was the first one I met, actually, when I came back from Russia from Patch Adams. He and I met at a Chernobyl children's event. These were all the kids that had been exposed to the radiation in Chernobyl. Nuclear power, another real big problem. Something like a 4 billion half-life. It's crazy stuff. Toxic. So we got to clown with the kids. And he and I met, and we went to hospitals. And that's why we go to hospitals, you see, because it's bringing humour and light and laughter into sick places, which is what they need. They actually need positive, because it lifts the hormones. The hormones are stimulated by laughter. Endorphins. They bring a beautiful chemical exchange in the body when you start getting people to laugh. It's extremely good for health. People have laughed themselves out of cancer. So what does that tell you? The imbalance with mental health is because we're way too focused on the negative, because a lot of what we're receiving from communications is negative. We're not talking about the great success stories. They're there, but there's not enough of them. And because we're not interacting, because we've got no time, we're too tired, we're not having enough fun, or we use alcohol as a means of trying to create that jovial fun, but it's just alcohol, and if you get too much of it, you get addicted to that too. That's not healthy. Community is healthy. It's what everybody needs. So this is very, very important, this video, that we start the conversation about mental health. We have to also look at the way our economy is run. Where is it toxic? Where is it healthy? Where does it work? Where doesn't it work? Is it all about the mighty dollar? Is that really where security is going to be found? Or is the real security in creating a joyful, happy society from the cradle to the grave, where your interests are my interests? What I do for you, I do for another. What I do for me, I do for another. What I do for you, I do for me. I'm just playing with those a little bit. In other words, we're interactive, we're connected. And we're connected even when we disconnect, we're connected. Everyone's feeling it. And they feel the social isolation as a result of it. We have to have a big conversation about technology. We have to talk about the intrusion into our lives, our privacy, through the data gathering, which is really being pushed through the internet. Now, this is a public internet. There are also other cablings of private nets. We have to look at that too, because they don't get the commercial stuff. They get to be able to communicate without interference. We also have to talk about this fear around terrorism, and we have to get very clear about who is actually responsible for generating the terror. There has to be an honest discourse with the society around that, because that has been one of the major calls which have brought on more security, more cameras, more intrusions. Now, if we're having mental health issues, you can't suppress that, make people more fearful, because it worsens mental health. You have to de-escalate the fear if you want social harmony. You have to be able to dialogue. You have to be able to identify the fears. The work of Byron Katie I've often talked about in videos. Go to thework.com. She talks about inquiry. This is where you sit by yourself, you go, say your fear is the world is unsafe. Questions would be, is it true? You go, yes, it's unsafe. Look around, look at the media. Second question is, can you be absolutely sure it's unsafe? You might go, well, no, I'm not totally sure. Third question is, how do you feel? How do you react when you believe the thought that the world is unsafe? Because it's the thought that causes you stress, not the world. You have to get clear about this. If you're unconscious, you're going to think your thought is the world. When you're conscious, you go, no, it's my thought that's stimulating my emotions, which I'm projecting out and believing. It's not reality. This is the object of things. So the next question is, can you look at the world without the story that it's unsafe? Well, I'm sitting here looking out my window and it's a beautiful day. There is no threat in this moment. Now, this type of thinking says stay in the moment. In this moment, are you threatened? No, I'm not. Then the world is safe. In the next moment, are you threatened? Well, no, I'm not. The world is safe. Now, let's just say somewhere down the track, someone threatens you. Okay, in that moment, I got threatened. What did I do? I responded. What happened after that? De-escalated it, because I had skills. I was taught conflict resolution. I mean, I can feel that you are upset. Do you want to sit and talk about it? When you scream at me in this way, it makes me feel frightened. Can we talk in a normal voice? Now, when you film me without my permission, it makes me feel under surveillance when I've done nothing wrong, and that reduces my quality of life, because everywhere I go, I feel I'm being watched by cameras, which I am. We're actually watched by something like up to 1,000 cameras a day. There's more and more cameras. It's like not so long ago, it was illegal to take someone's image without their permission. And in fact, even in the courts, even when I've dealt with regulators, they said that if there's footage, you have to blur out the images of the other people. Yet everyone can have a camera. How does that work? What about drones? What about them hovering from the point of view of stalking someone? I want to find out who my ex-wife's with. I'm going to send a drone over. Film it. Where is the line here? This is going to create paranoia. This becomes like a Stasi-type control state. What is that going to do to mental health? What happens if the profiling is wrong? I'm a market analyst. I know about qualitative and quantitative. And what I've come to understand is when I believe the statistics without the real holistic story around it, such as a qualitative aspect of actually front-to-front, face-to-face communication and dialogue, getting to know someone, not as an interrogator, but actually getting to know them as a human, the profile changes. I got it wrong. That was my beliefs I projected onto them because I've been trained in counterterrorism. I see the world as possible threats. This is also a defense type mentality. I don't have a holistic vision because I am wired to see a threat. Therefore, the world's not safe. Hence, my inquiry into that. If you start to believe that the world is unsafe, what you think about, you bring about. Law of attraction. You need to look into that. Okay, the world's not safe. Everyone believes the world's not safe. We arm up. Someone gets shot. In the peace area, we talked about escalation of violence. One side arms up, the other side arms up. Then they increase the armaments. Then the other side copies because they're trying to get parity. They're trying to make sure they're safe. This is what happened with the arms race. The nuclear weapons, with 10,000 on US side, 10,000 on the Russian side. They put up satellites, they put up satellites. They do counter-terrorism operations, they do counter-terrorism operations. They get into the IT, cyber, stalking, cyber, intelligence, cyber warfare. The other side does. And what do we end up with? The public in the middle. Mental health issues, they're the ones being under siege. And then they become the enemy because they have a phone and they could easily report something. That is an insanity. That is a mental health. That's a real problem for us. You have to invite in other voices. You have to invite in balance. You have to invite in peace if you want social harmony. If you don't, then you will escalate these problems, disintegrate family. Family is at the absolute core of all of this. You have to heal the family. You have to bring the parents together. Parents have to find peace in their relationships. We need to de-escalate the pressures on families financially because there are a lot of families breaking up. Children end up in single-parent situations and there's a whole heap of judgment around that. But they end up in poverty. Then they feel inadequate, not good enough. They don't get to go to the good schools. And we shouldn't have differences in schooling. Everyone should be getting the same schooling. It's called level playing field. There's talent in our society that's not being maximised because of disadvantage, which is structurally built in through you go to this school, then you get access into these jobs at the higher end. You get paid an enormous amount of money. Those at the bottom end get paid, $17 an hour in states of inflation. Real wages go down, housing prices go up, poverty increases, people go on the street, more mental health. I can't cope. I can't meet my basic needs. So you can see through this narrative from what I'm sharing here, this is very complicated, but it requires an intelligent response, a compassionate response. Compassion is the pink elephant in the room that's missing. as we get hard-nosed about life, as we get zero tolerance around problems, because we don't know how to address those problems. I've given you some clues: conflict resolution, inquiry, inviting in diverse voices, bringing in and balancing the feminine and the masculine. These are all solutions. Public forums, dialogues, take responsibility for your society, become part, become present. When someone speaks to you, don't drift off, actually really hear them. I'll just give you another quick technique that you can do, which is what we call concentric circles. You have two circles of people where an inner group and an outer group, and they're facing each other. So they're sitting on the floor. If this is with children. If they're with adults, they're on chairs, facing each other. One side, say the inner group, is to speak to the outer group. This is on one-on-one, face-to-face. And they're to say, we might have a theme. A conflict I resolved successfully could be the theme. Person then speaks of this conflict they resolved successfully to the one in front. The one in front is not to interrupt, not to say anything, but to listen deeply to what's being said. Now, when we do this, typically we don't tell the other party that they're going to be expected to repeat back what they heard. We get them to stop. They talk for 2 minutes, get them to stop and say, okay, the other side, we want you to now repeat back word for word what you heard. And they go, oh, well. And then they grapple for sound bites that they caught. Maybe they weren't listening at all. Then I would say, okay, so let's go around the room and talk about what you remembered. And it's amazing to see how many people aren't really listening to the other person. They're not hearing them. This is where mental health comes from, is they're not being heard because they're too busy thinking about what's coming next. Some were able to reflect back. This is reflective listening skill. And then the reverse happens. The person who was listening then becomes the one who tells that other about a conflict they resolved successfully. And then the other party gets the opportunity to really, and they do it better typically because they've already been primed. So they then reflect back. This is what we're not teaching. I was doing the Real Hope program. You're more than welcome to go to my website, www.worldpeacefull, so it's Worldpeacefull, full.com. And if you go to school programs, go to anti-bullying, you'll see the Real Hope program, which was an excellent program that I developed many years ago. I haven't been able to fully get it into the schools because I'm a solo operator, and I've also had other matters that I've had to deal with over these years, which is educating me in the real peace. You have to face life, you have to face conflict. To turn it around, to transform it, there are no longer an enemy. You cannot have an enemy if you want mental health. Enemies get locked in, they energetically lock, and they cannot disengage because they have to hate the other and justify why a harm must happen to that other party to get rid of the problem. The problem never goes. Laws of cause and effect are in play here. Something comes back. Life is circular. Remember what I said before. Life is circular. You have to see the other party as the teacher. It lightens up when you see them as the teacher. I'm here to learn something because I've had an emotional reaction to this. What is it that's threatening me? Where am I hurt? What is being evoked here? How do I sit with this? This is the work of Byron Katie. You sit with it and you deal with the pain within yourself. Now, when you de-escalate the pain, what they say is that once you go through a process of inquiry, the pain actually releases. This is how you heal. It literally releases because it's energetic. When you're thinking constantly, ruminating over things constantly, it attaches. These are the attachments that form. They're not a criminal activity, they're an attachment. Because it's the nature of human beings that if you keep repeatedly thinking something, it becomes part of the neural network, and it then Whenever you think the thought, it attaches emotionally. The emotions attach to the thought. That's how deep this is. So if you want violence to de-escalate, you have to deal with the pain associated with the thought. Now, if we're turning a violent activity into a fun activity, there's a dehumanization that occurs because everything becomes a game. I know of guys that consider sex to be a porno film. So for them, they don't know how to make love with a woman. They only see a porno film in their mind. That's what I'm saying, is there's a projection happening there that's not real. And then the attachment to self-gratification comes in. The same applies with the violent games. There's a projection of power happening as they are pretending and believing. Their faces can be scanned onto the characters too. So they're actually the character carrying the gun, killing all these people, winning, because there'll be some reward in it. That's operant conditioning. And then they go forth in the game and they're killing all these people, and this becomes their virtual world. It's an unreal world. But that unreal world is changing the neurological networks in the brain, desensitizing them to the feelings of others, because they're not learning. That man I just murdered, he's got a family. They're all crying. What have I done? That's the real world, the impact of the violent act. Because you think it through and trial it and simulate and simulate and simulate, eventually it's going to turn into some sort of action. This is why my last video was a warning, because you're actually training up a young generation to objectivize others. You're plugging them into technology so they don't speak to the other party, and then they just see them as objects. Their world they move through becomes a world of objects, not the real world. And then people suicide because they can't find friends. They don't feel they belong. They don't feel the connection. Nobody cares. Is that the world you really want? It's not the world I want. I've been in the other world. I've been in a world of complete safety, of fun, where everyone is my friend, where everyone is worthy, where everyone has value, everyone has a story. And how fascinating is this world to be able to move through a world with so many incredible people. And believe me, that's the real world. I've not got it wrong. I haven't got it wrong. You're in danger of meeting a friend when you see in a way that's grounded and real. If there is a problem with a person, you cannot go wrong if you're kind to them. If they look like they're on a drug and they're out of control, then you step back. But you seek to help them, not condemn them. That's what gross national happiness will bring to our world when we finally come to the decision that this is not serving us. We want a mentally healthy world so that we can reach our dreams. Our infinite potential is sitting waiting for us. You have to choose that. So with that, I'm going to send you love, as always, and peace and happiness, gross national happiness, which will usher in not only mental health, but social harmony. That has to be the greatest national priority for every nation on this planet. Take care. Bye.